Hello, it's Lee. It's me talking about Game Guru. Perhaps, probably, casually for the last time, because I have a plan that next week, and for probably the next 15 weeks, it's going to be more of a structured, showing you how to make a complete game and exploring the software from beginning to end. There has been some feedback that the Twitch broadcasts have been a little bit, what's the word? Cavalier? I think that's the word we used to use, cavalier. I personally like that. I personally enjoy that freeform factor about waffling on about whatever I like. But we're starting to create quite a library now of these broadcasts, and it's like a bit of a rat's nest. You have to sort of watch them all and really dig deep to find little pearls of wisdom. So wouldn't it be nice if you had a series of broadcasts that had good titles, stayed on track, had a structure to them, beginning, middle and end, and you had a takeaway at the end of every session. Not an actual takeaway that you could eat, a takeaway, a message, some information you didn't know before, and then when chained together would allow you to create a very cool game at the end of it. Not just the game you end up with after 50 seconds in Game Guru, which is certainly possible and is one of our strong points, that you can actually make a game in 60 seconds, but it's probably not going to get you fame and fortune, and you probably want to spend more time than 1 minute working on said game. So it would be something along those lines. So in the spirit of that, and I'm certainly not saying we won't do lots of casual stuff on Twitter sessions, I'm just saying, prepare yourself, there may be some formality being injected, some grown-upness injected in the future. But for now and right now, what I want to reveal is very casual and cavalier. It's the progress I'm making so far. Normally I hide all this development and just reveal it in an update when I'm ready. But I figured, what the heck, I'm sure you're interested in what's going on. But before they get into the details, I just want to give you a little general overview. It's the start of 2016. If you've been reading my developer blog, you'll notice I've been knee-deep. Well, not knee-deep, I think neck-deep in meetings and emails and agendas and spreadsheets, and it gave me pause to repeatedly say I used to be a programmer. Hopefully I'm getting to the end of that now. It's taken over 6 weeks, but I'm emerging from this sort of flurry of paperwork, and I can get back to the real business, the fun stuff, which is creating code and content and new features and stuff like that. And my commitment in 2016 is to really hit the voting board. Up until the end of 2015, we really had a lot of different plates spinning. We were perfecting different areas of the existing engine, and we added a lot there. And stuff to help new users come in and really get to know what the software is really quickly, with the videos and the sample games, and are continually adding content so you can create more kinds of games. But all the while the voting board sat there. You could vote, you could see your favourite feature go up and down the list, but it wasn't getting any shorter, was it? So my commitment this year is to sit on that list in earnest, putting it as a priority over other things that we personally may want to do in the internal development team. And to introduce it, I'm going to take you there, because you may not have seen this before. What we have is, in the main menu, you've got features list and community vote. And the features list tells you what you've got already, so there's quite a few bits and bobs, but we don't sit on our laurels, so we jump to the community vote. And the community vote is where it's at. This is this huge list of things that we all want to see, but we're putting it in such a way that you can vote on what you think is the most important, and then that gets up to the top of the list, and then you can vote for it. And as you can see, we've already made some successes. We were asked to improve the performance of Game Guru, and so we had a good look at it. We thought, well, the best way to do that, to get the most performance, is move it from DBP, which is a programming language based on BASIC, over to C++, which is an industry standard programming language with built-in debuggers and optimizations of the kazoo. So we did that, and we got some remarkable performance improvements. It's still not satisfying everyone. There's still people on the lower end systems and on laptops and things like that, or I'd say low end CPUs, who expect more performance because our engine isn't totally N-core. It's primarily single-threaded with a few threads running in the background, but it by no means saturates all the CPUs on devices that have like a quad core system. So we have some more room to maneuver there, and we will add that back to the list. You've got occlusion that we did, so that's actually running on another thread. So as you're playing the game on a second thread, so it's another CPU on your computer, it's calculating what should and should not be hidden at the particular point in that game, and then that removes those objects from being drawn, and it further improves performance. So those two things were related to the performance work we did, and so we could tick those off, even though they weren't necessarily voted to the top. They were related to things that we was working on. And as you can see, the list is quite extensive. So we have a lot of really great ideas to add, and Game Guru is going to grow and grow and grow as a result. And when we got to the point of, right, 2016, what should we pick? Well, the thing at the top at the time, it was a bit of a battle, but Save and Load Progress was the one at the top when we decided to take one off the list. And that's what we're working on now. That's what I'm going to reveal to you today in its current form. And then once that's done, we go back to the voting list. Now I'm viewing results. I'm logged in and I've voted, so I get to see the votes. I think you have to vote in order to see the feature list, so it encourages people to vote. But we've got thousands and thousands of Game Guru users with only 895 voters. So I'd be kind of, I'm in two minds about this. It'd be nice to encourage people, so everyone who's got Game Guru vote. But then there's other people in the community who said, no, don't let them vote, because my vote might drop down. So I'm certainly not going to make a big song and dance about it. Enough people know about the voting board, and the things are consistently being at the top. For example, currently, with Save and Load out the way, these two are vying for power. Easy Building Editor. Actually, I think bot navigation had a brief time near the top, or at least number 2 spot. So once Save Load is finished, then we're going to do the, according to the current list, Easy Building Editor. But we only pick from the top of the list once it's done. Once Save and Load is done, we look at the list and whatever it is there at the time. And looking at the scores, Easy Building Editor 8,500 points, and the bots to navigate stirs almost 1,000 points below that. I think it's pretty safe to assume the Easy Building Editor will be the next feature being added. And bear in mind as well that when we've done the Save and Load feature, we don't draw a line under that. We'll continue to keep adding little bits to it, certainly fix bugs and tweak things that ought to be better as we go. But in terms of bulk projects, huge things that we do, it would be the top item list. We get the bulk of it done, it works, it's tested, it's great, and then we move on to the next one, because as you can see, we've got quite a bit of work. I think the top 4 are the ones that are really going to paint the picture over the next couple of months. The Easy Building Editor, which lets you, you can add a building in its entirety right now in Game Guru, but wouldn't it be nice if you can decide what the rooms look like and the corridors, and how many floors does it have? Does it have a roof access? How many doors and windows? Things like that. Can't really do that now, and so the Easy Building Editor will solve that problem for you. Bots to navigate. This idea that you want to be able to put an enemy on a roof and have it patrol the roof, or even an enemy that can sort of open a door, go through the door, go up some steps, jump out a window onto a balcony, then run across there. Those sorts of things you can't really do at the moment. Enemies just run around on the floor. There's little tricks you can do by putting enemies on roofs, but freeze them with is immobile so they can't run. So they can be like snipers and things, but they can't really move around. And that's what the Bots to Navigate feature will do. It'll let them have full autonomy on where they go within the world. Makes for much more interesting gameplay. Now, menu editing. In a way, I'm sort of halfway through that, because the Save Load Progress work required the standalone menus to be updated to Lua script. Personal choice, but I think it's the right long-term decision. And the menu editing is like 50% of what we would have done anyway in terms of the Lua scripting. So when we come to the menu editing, we've kind of already done half the work. So that should actually appear quite quickly. And in more detail, what the menu editing is, it's simply a GUI, a front-end user interface that lets you drag buttons around, create buttons, delete them, add new images, change all the graphics and the minor functionalities within those menus. But because we're on Lua script, makes it a whole lot easier to do. And then the last one, talking characters and quest givers. Yeah. It's just a couple of scripts. We've already got the animations. If you actually get the Sci-Fi Pack DLC, you'll actually see some characters already using some of those animations to do really simple talk. They'll have one sentence, send you off to do a thing, come back, oh congratulations you did the one thing, and then they give you something and then you can carry on with the game. Talking characters, in this one will be like a proper conversation engine, so you can stack up huge conversations with characters like you would get, say, in Monkey Island, if anyone remembers that game. And quest givers is an extension of that. Not only can they talk, they can respond to items you give them, items they give out, blocking doors that won't open until the character is satisfied, stuff like that. All done without scripting, all through a UI where you can just tick things and choose things, and that should give you a lot more abilities when you're creating your own games, especially in more like adventure games or RPG style games. So those are the big four. The voting board changes every day, so if you haven't voted, please vote, because I think it'll make it very interesting. And then we'll see where we are. And like I said, I'm not really going to dwell hugely on each one because we've got a lot to get through. And I think, 80% of a thing is better than nothing of a thing. If you're waiting for day and night systems and we're taking all year to do the top four, you won't be too pleased. So that's the logic behind it. Anyway, enough waffle from me. Just giving you a sort of a overall scope of where I'm coming from when I show you the progress. And the progress is here. Coincidentally called Save and Load Progress. But I decided to... I'll just show you what I'm working on. I decided to convert the titles and in-game menus into Lua script because I didn't want to hard code anymore. One of my mantras for 2016 is if it's hard coded, get it out into a script. Don't leave it hard coded and come back to it later, because I probably never will. So the moment I have an opportunity to work on something that has some hard coding, I'm moving it out, moving it into a script. That way, by the time I end the feature list and everything's done, there's nothing hard coded left. There's nothing left in the engine that's hard coded. And I'm always going to watch the performance, make sure we don't sacrifice flexibility through scripting, but we sacrifice performance in the process. So I'm going to keep an eagle eye on that, and maybe add a few more voting items for further performance improvements across the encore and further optimizations of certain techniques, and maybe doing some stuff inside a Lua command that will speed up the whole script performance in general. So, you may have noticed I've been waffling for a while and let you just stare at this screen. I don't know whether it comes across on the broadcast, but this backdrop is moving. I've moved it really slow. I did two things. One, I changed the way sprites are positioned, so they're not using integers, which is whole numbers. It's now using floats. So you can position a sprite halfway between two physical pixels. And because it's all rendered in 3D, because it uses 3D technology and hardware acceleration, the rendering system will take care of that. It will sort of blend, it will find the actual final physical pixel color based on the blend of those two texels that were stored in the sprite image. And what it all boils down to is when you move a sprite across the screen now using any Lua script, it's smooth. It doesn't jag across. And if you actually move something infinitesimally slowly, you get a nice shimmer effect, and that's what I've added to this title screen. So now when you run your standalone executables, you can certainly go into the script and stop it, but right now by default you get a nice shimmer in the background. And what I wanted to create is this sense of live screen. If you look at sort of a CCTV camera and the pixels are swimming slightly, but it's a still image and nothing's moving on it, but you feel like it's alive, well, that's the effect I've created in the title screen. And that permeates across all the screens. You'll notice your mouse pointer just got bigger. The old one was just an actual operating system mouse pointer, but a lot of games you can that you play will have their own design to fit the style of the title screen you want. But you was always stuck with this little teeny weeny OS mouse. So now this is just an image. You can change this to whatever you want. You can change the backdrop to whatever you want. You can change these buttons to whatever you want. Because it's in script, you can change where they are. You can add more buttons, just subtract buttons. You can do what you like. Now it's all script, like I said. When we get to the item number 3 on the voting board, the menu editing, then you'll be able to have a little UI where you can just drag things around like a drag and drop. And a little editor to let you do that. So I can click on About. And this is a different backdrop, so you've changed that. Again, it's still swimming. Little back button which takes you back. Then you've got, now I'll introduce these later. We've got loading game. You get all the slots. This is actual text, these aren't graphics. Empty progress slot, that's a text that's written over the top of the graphic. You can go back to the main menu. I'll just give you a tour of all the menus. This loading screen is also customizable. The backdrop, the text, the progress bar. But press escape when we're in the game, you've got the in-game menu. So you can obviously go back to that main menu, you could resume the game, or You can go to graphic settings. You can set the quality of your shaders. Before this was hard-coded, now it's a script, so you can have as many settings as you want at this level. You can add more feature changes. You can change fog on and off. We have Lua commands already for that, so you can add that functionality in. You now have the power to do what you want in the entire in-game menu. It's not just this, it's everything. You can change the field of view. That was in the original. What I've decided to do is, rather than spend a lot of time innovating around this menu system, you all voted for save load progress, not for a whole redo of the menu system. So I've just redone what the old system did, but it's now in script. You've also got sound levels. You can change low sound effects, loud music, and in the game you can let's say you can run around the game for a bit. Let's say I go here. I'm really pleased that I've made my progress. Then you can do save game, and again you've got the slots you can pick, the header, the back button, same. You can load in an earlier progress if you want, and obviously resume and go back. Now, this is as far as I've got in terms of save and load. Before I could do save and load, I needed a mechanism for someone to be able to save the position and then reload it, and that had to be done in a visual and user and interface way, which is why I needed save game and load game as buttons, and save game and load game as screens, as menu screens. That was the whole purpose of this, what I've done up to this point. Now but like I said, the gubbins are inside here to actually, can you save game progress right now? No, because I'm still finalising how I'm going to get that data stored and then restored. I just want to show you the next bit. If I resume, this is a 2-level standalone, by the way, that I knocked out as quickly as humanly possible, thus explaining the completely flat terrain and horrible floor. So if I run into this little wind zone, it loads level 2. Again, you can change this loading screen and the text, anything you want. And what's good thing about the loading screen is it's a script. You can run that loading screen and have interfaces like more buttons. You can have a story being told, or animation, or some sounds, or whatever you like. And then when you're finished, when you're ready to load in the next game, you just have a little Lua command which says carry on, and then it will go on and load the game and you can play it. So it's an interactive loading section if you wanted that for your game. I've seen that in a few games like Call of Duty, where they're showing you like a mission, showing you maps and your target and some narrative, so you can do all that now because it's all scriptable. Hooray! So I'm on level 2. If I run between the two churches, it will actually complete the game. But what I want to show is jumping off, and I can't even kill myself right. Jump, land. So I've got 2 lives left, and the idea is that by getting to 0 lives. Oh, come on. Again. Yes. And the idea is, at the end of a game, the end of a standalone game, you've got 3 states. You can lose the game completely. Let's see if we can do this in one. Here we go. Oh. Maybe I should just carry on moving forward. There you go. Perfect. And then that screen there, the backdrop and the continue, that's the game over. And you can put anything you want there. Again, it's a script, so you can do some huge elongated narrative before, and then this continue button will allow you to get back to the main menu and you can start again. There may also be an option, if you wanted to, you could put load game in there as well, and you can reuse menus. Each page, for example, this is one Lua script. The about is another Lua script. Same with load and graphics and sounds and the win game, lose game, and move to next level screen. So now you've seen what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you the gubbins, the insides. Now some people may have already explored Titles Bank, but it's pretty cool actually. The style.txt tells you what style of menu you want. Now at the moment I'm just developing you a template. I'm just going to create something for you, which points to this folder. And inside this folder is all the images, all the various resolution variants, because your game, you don't know what size of resolution your end user is going to be playing your game at. So we've provided a lot of folders to find the nearest match to the resolution they're on, and that way you can do one-to-one pixel quality on the graphics that matter, which in my experience has been things like backdrops. You know, the big screens that when you stretch them from 800 by 600 to a 1080p monitor, it looks blurry. And so by providing higher resolution media for when it needs it, then you're going to have a nice higher quality finish to your game. And these are all the buttons and highlights and graphics that you'll find on top of your backdrop. But this is the one I really wanted to show you. These are Lua script. Each script represents a page, and inside these scripts is a host of new commands that let you bounce backwards and forwards between them. I decided to try go for this idea of the least hard-coded humanly possible. At first I thought I'll preload you all the graphics and then you can just position things. But I saw a roadblock there. What if you wanted more than the buttons? What if you wanted nice graphics and animations swimming around on the title screen? What would you do then? So thankfully Ravy already implemented an entire sprite system into our Lua stuff. So that's what I decided to use. Ignore all these at the top. These are just my constants, my variables and my globals to help me out. This is the bit that's really good. There's a for next loop, and within that it works out which is the best folder to grab the backdrop graphic from. And what it does, it takes your actual resolution of your desktop. So let's say for me it's, I think mine's pretty stupid, it's 1920 by 1080. To me it's pretty stupid, but I increased the font size to compensate. And so that's my actual device width, 1920. And what it does, it goes through each of the folders that it's got, and it tries to find a number that's as close to the one I've got as possible. Fortunately, there's an exact match. But I added some code to measure the differences. So if your resolution is slightly out of the ones that we've provided for, it finds the closest match, and then it chooses that one, and then it uses that, it creates a string out of it, and it uses that to locate the folder where you're going to grab all the graphics from. And you'll see inside these folders, let's say mine's this one, you've got your title backdrop, you've got your win game, which is end, you've got your lose game, your loadings page, and when you go into the about you put things like the game instructions and author and stuff like that. And if we go back to the script, you'll actually see, once you've actually loaded it in as an image, then you can create a sprite from it, you can position it, you can size it. And this is a little trick that I created. Instead of sizing it to the 100 by 100, which is 100% across and 100% down, I sized it at 110%, which makes it slightly bigger than the actual screen size. But then I set the offset to 5% in, and then further down inside the main loop, you can call it, which gets called every single cycle, I actually rotate the image and move it in a circular motion, but not more than 5%. In fact, it's exactly 5%, but the maths is so accurate you don't actually see like what's behind the backdrop, and it moves very, very slowly. It only actually increments the angle at 0.002 degrees, so it's hardly rotating. But that's enough to create that swim effect I was talking about, and set sprite position now accepts floats instead of integers. It won't break any of your old scripts, it just means sprites are now smoother. And if you find that you don't want, sub-pixel movement on your sprites, there's a maths command called math.int, int, open brackets, and then just put all your gubbins for your value inside those brackets, and you'll get the old functionality. But I wanted to smooth the sprites, so that's what I got. So I'm going to go through the script. So boring alert, if you're not really interested in scripts, you might want to put your fingers in your ears for 10 minutes. But it touches on a few things that I'm going to be doing next, so it might be worth listening to. I do apologise for that noise that happens every now and again. It seems I must have a faulty USB device that decides to connect and disconnect every now and again. One of these days I'm going to find out what it is and then unplug it in disgust. So we'll skip this bit because I've already described it. We've now loaded in a backdrop image and created a sprite from it. Remember, this is still the initialization bit, title init. So he only runs this once to prepare everything and load everything up. So we've got buttons. Now remember the title screen, it had 4 buttons. So rather than line by line, I've actually got a loop, and I'm using my constants to identify what the index is for each of the buttons. These are the file names, or rather the bits of the file name that are unique. And what I'll do here, I'll actually load in the button, but I'll also load in its highlighted version. And I use this unique name each time I go around. Again, create the sprite from the loaded image. I set an offset so I can center the button, and then I decide where I want it on the screen vertically, and then I set the position. And then the last thing I do, I load in a cursor image and then make a sprite out of it and give it a global sprite value in a global variable, so then I can use that later on. In fact, I'm using that almost immediately. Title main is my main loop. That's where it's going to loop round and round and round and round. So the first thing I do is make sure that the cursor image, that is now my actual cursor, is always where the mouse is. Now everything in Lua script is percentage based. So 0 to 100 going across, 0 to 100 going down. So you don't have to worry about different resolutions, you just have to work on this percentage coordinate system and everything will be rosy. So I already know that my mouse is 0 to 100 and Y is 0 to 100. So my cursor icon will follow my mouse wherever I go. The next thing I want to do is find out if I'm hovering over something. So essentially just say, is my mouse inside one of these buttons? Because I already know where the buttons is, I set them up earlier. And then you have this big loop which loops through all the buttons. So you see you've got, in C++ you call them enums, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one is a unique index. The last one, title quit, is the last button. So when you actually do a for next loop and use that constant, that gets replaced by a for when you actually go to run this Lua script. So it's like for t equals 1 to 4. So it's going to do 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So that's how that works. And same with this. I'm going to loop through every single button. If it's highlighted, I use the highlighted image. Otherwise, I just use the regular image. So I can constantly update. When you hover over a button, it will highlight. And then when you click the mouse, the left mouse button, if you wanted to right click, it will be a value of 2. Little insight for you. It sees which button was highlighted at the time, and then it makes an operation. Now, introducing two of the first new commands you're going to get in the next update. Switch page. If you switch page with no text, it's just an empty string, then it says, I finished with this page, carry on. And what that means is if you're on the title screen and you just say, carry on, it goes to the loading page. If you're in the game over screen and you do carry on, then it goes back to the main menu. So it lets you carry on to the next logical thing. But if you put in a string, an actual name, what it will do, it will look for that script. You know, it's clever enough to preload all the scripts, but all you've got to do is say, I want to go to this script now, and it does really clever things. As soon as you do that, it will clean itself up, so it deletes all the images and sprites that it was using, and anything else you might want to put in here, and then it launches the next script. Now let's, for example, I did click title load game. So look in here, I actually have load game.lua. So just as we did with the title screen, initializing everything, loading stuff in, having a main loop which runs that, and then when you do something it cleans itself up and then moves back, same sort of thing. So that's what that does, it can move to another page. Now you can see where this is going. You can have as many pages as you want. You could have a whole game just on the main menu by moving from page to page to page, fully controlling this sprite engine with Lua commands. Pretty powerful stuff, you know. That's what I wanted to do with this whole 2016, externalize all the hard-coded stuff. It's not about, as has been suggested, me open sourcing Game Guru and buggering off. It's me creating ultimate flexibility, so you can create anything you want. Within reason, you cannot recreate, you know, the computer system at Jodrell back. But you can certainly make games, which I think is what we're all about. And so that will go to the About screen, which is a simple backdrop with a button which takes you back. And then Quit Game, that's a new Lua command. If you're in the main menu, it ends everything. It quits everything. You can even issue that in the game, and the game will close down and instantly quit out. So you could actually have quick game in the game itself if you wanted to get out quickly. Because at the moment you have to go back to the main menu, which is a big reload of the exit, and then you can come out. So there's a bit of like a 20-second delay on some people's computers. Then the last thing is that very slow shimmering movement of the backdrop that I was describing earlier. And I've commented out this line because it's not really supposed to be there. But if you wanted to do some debugging, you can actually do that with this. But very important, there's a couple of new commands. There's backdrop on and backdrop off. That will switch on and off the 3D backdrop. You'll find that when you're in the game itself, there's a draw order. 3D will be drawn, then sprites, then text. But draw sprite first will move the sprite draw before the 3D, and that's very important in some scenarios. So backdrop on and off refers to the 3D backdrop that gets painted if you're not paying attention, and then set sprites first and set sprites last will move the position of the draw order for sprites either before or after the 3D. And if you think about it, if you draw some text, you want to make sure that the sprites are overwriting that text. But you'll notice in here I've actually got the backdrop off because I don't want the 3D in the title screen. There's no point, there's no 3D, and then draw sprites last. So it's drawing it after the 3D in any event. So you have draw sprites last, you won't see anything in the prompt. You need to do draw sprites first and then you can see the text. So that's why that's been commented out, but then noted. And then finally, titles free, that gets called when you leave the title. If you do switch page with no string, it leaves it. And then you have to have a nice cleanup. If you leave any sprites around, you move on to the next page, that sprite will still be there. You know, you might want that. You might want that, but then you're going to have some way of tracking those globals, and there's ways to do that. And I'm going to show you that now because it's not relevant to this page. So probably the best way to introduce you to it is to show you graphics. Remember in the graphics page where you can set high, medium and low? How do you think we remember that? It would have been easier for me to hard-code something in the engine to save that state. In fact, there already is some hard-coded stuff that does that. But I thought, no, I'm not hard-coding anything. If I can help it, I'm unhard-coding it. And so I discovered a few commands in Lua which accesses, reads and writes files. So what I've done now is I've got a global called graphics choice. When you first go into the graphics menu, it opens up a file, if it exists, called graphics.dat. It opens it for reading, it reads the number from the file, overwrites the global. So that's where I'm getting my graphics state from if I've stored it previously. To store it previously, you'll notice that when I leave my graphics menu, I open graphics.dat. It overwrites it if it's there already, sets it up for writing. It writes out the choice that I may have changed in the graphics menu, then closes the file up. So now I have file commands, and that gave me a thought. If I can do the entire save and load progress in Lua script rather than hardcode any of it inside the engine, that would allow you to update your own save game system. You can add your own globals, you can add your own this, add your own that. It becomes extremely powerful. Plus, if there is some sort of icky issue about I loaded this in, my game's not quite loaded in right, it's a bug, Lee, please fix bug, and it takes me 4 weeks to get the update out with the fix in it. You don't need to wait 4 weeks. You go straight into the script and say, I see what he's done. He's missed the equal sign, or it's an equal instead of an assign, or something like that. You can fix it then. You don't have to wait 4 weeks. You can see it, you can fix it. And then share it with your friends on the community, and then they've got the fix. And then I can take the fix and put it into a build and get it out a bit sooner. So you can see the benefits of opening the functionality and putting it in the form of Lua script. So that's very encouraging, and I think I will be using that for the save load progress. And then once you've loaded it all in, there's going to be another slew of Lua commands to set up the scene. And that's going to give you a lot of new commands you've not had before. You know, moving entities, resetting physics, turning things into ragdoll and changing the limbs of those ragdoll. All that stuff may be needed in order to completely recreate a game at whatever point you saved it at. You know, mid-battle, lots of variables are flying around. All that stuff needs to be saved, stored, and the worst part, reloaded, and the game scene recreated. That's the icky part. But if I do it all as lua commands, you get total freedom. The commands that were written for this can then be used in-game for lots of other reasons, and that's what I like about it. So you've seen how the graphics system can load in any previous settings that you've done, and you can, as you see down here, if you press low, it changes that global to 1. Change to medium, sets it to 2, and high sets it to 3. And we're loading in the state in so it remembers what it did last time, and you're saving out every time you leave the graphics menu. The only way it wouldn't save is if you actually Alt F4 out of the game. Then it won't know. But as soon as you leave and click the back button, it saves it. Or not just the back button, any way you get out of that menu, you'll actually be able to save it. And you'll notice in the title screen, you may have noticed that. Look, I'm actually loading in here. Because things like the music volume and the graphics choice, I need to know that much sooner than you going into the game menu, in the in-game menu. I need to know about it before the game even starts. I need to know what quality of graphics you want, what sound volumes you'd set the last time you was playing this game. And another difference as well, another functional difference. Last time when you changed settings in your game, but you had 3 Game Guru games in your standalone folder, you changed the settings in one game, it was a global setting file. The other 2 games would also change as a result, and I thought that was a bit naughty. So now there's a new folder in your standalone that gets created for you called Save Games, and inside there there'll be a readme if you didn't do anything, but as soon as you play a game and make some settings, you'll actually have graphics for the graphic settings and sounds for the sound settings. And also in this folder is going to be all your save game progress. So those are all the as you're playing this particular game, I've just called it underscore level 1 for lack of imagination. But then if we decided to go the route of grabbing screenshots, so it grabs the screenshot of what you're doing at the time, making that part of the save and load process, those bitmaps will be here as well. So that's what this new folder is for. So hopefully that gives you a glimpse at what I've been doing in advance of the actual save load meat. Which, you know, I'd probably have done by now if it was just hacking it in. But, you know, it's going to take a little bit longer, but I think the benefits bear more fruit. And along the way, I accidentally discovered these wonderful Lua file commands that I thought was basically a gimmick, but having looked at the documentation, there are a full range of, you know, you can read, load, append, modify, you can move the character position within the file as you're seeking through it. So it's a full set of file commands, it's pretty cool. So those are the ones I will probably most likely be using for the save, and then the loading that back in, and then a lot of commands to sort of reconstruct the scene. There's a couple of gotchas where I might actually just skip until someone complains, which is recreating the exact fallen position of a ragdoll. Or maybe the exact orientation of a barrel that's rolled down a hill and is just sitting there. You know, is it that important that the barrel is 35 degrees out of its original rotation position? These questions we'll ask and then answer at some future point. But if you can play a game, save your progress, all your stats are intact, and you can load it back anytime you want and carry on, I think that's 99% of what we really want, and is why it's got to #1 voting position. You've made a game, but then you're asking your player to start from scratch every time they start the game up again, or leave the game running forever. You know, it's not reasonable, so I can see why it hit #1 spot, and it's my job now to get it out and into the hands in the next update as soon as it's practicable. So I've just I reinstated my second screen. You don't see it, but I can see it, and it's got some questions on it. I encourage during these live broadcasts for people to ask questions, and I can answer them during this time and even demonstrate them because the software's in front of me. And I noticed a few question marks, which if anyone knows from previous broadcasts, a question mark glows on my screen, or at least it does in my head. So when I see one, I know there's a question and I've got something to answer. So I'm just going to read through them now. This is a question, probably an old question because I've been rambling on, and this question might have been sitting there a while. It's from Pirate Mark. It comes with 6 question marks. So it must be very urgent. The question is, so we could also call sounds in these scripts. Would they have to be in the script folder like the sprite images? Yes and no. So yes, you can load sounds, you can play sounds. In fact, no, have I gone ahead of myself? I am going to add commands called load sound, so you can actually have a global list of sound effects And just like sprites and images, you can have a big list of sounds, play them any way you want. Right now, there's no entity association with these title screens. I'll give you a practical example. If we look at title, you notice there's no parameter passed in. Title init, title main, title free. It's just an empty bracket. You compare that with something like in the script bank, WinZone. You see it passed in E. That E represents the entity that's associating this script with an actual 3D object in your game. And that 3D object carries with it some sound effects, some preset sound effects that you can trigger using play sound 0, play sound 1. But without that E, there's just no way, there's no sound. So there's nothing you can actually do about it. But as I was coding this and enjoying the beauty of load image and create sprite, it almost felt natural that load sound should be in this chunk of work. I just need a viable reason. I need enough people saying this is so important it cannot be released without load sound and that kind of thing. So I just need a few people to back me up on this one, because I totally want to do it, but again it's not necessarily related to save load, so it might be a tug of war here. So answer to the question, I said yes, no. The actual answer is no, because there's no entity associated with the title, and there's no way to load in the sound natively and play it. So please go on the forums, request, maybe 3 or 4 people all agree and tell me, and then I'll add it to my list. It's not a lot of work, but I don't want to spend even half an hour on something that the community doesn't agree I should be working on, because it all adds up in the year. Sounds to mouse rollover would be great. Yeah, I agree. That's subtlety. Is there another question? From Nathan L338. So with that, could you load different maps from the main menu? Good question. I know what you mean. The answer is presently no. But it would be so easy to do, wouldn't it? You would just need another command, something. I'll show you the loading, I'll show you how the game starts. Maybe we can come up with a solution right now. What we got is loading, and the loading screen is pretty simple. It chooses the best resolution, it loads in that backdrop, sticks it there, and then has it in the backdrop. Then it loads in the header, which will be loading, so the loading text. Then it loads in the, you know that bar that progresses across? It has like a backdrop bit, and then a foreground bit. And so the foreground bit draws on the background bit, and it increases in size on the X dimension as more of the game gets loaded in. But what happens is, once those graphics have been loaded in, it's rather unique. I like it. I'm sure a lot of people will hate it. Because I can't run Lua script whilst the game is loading, because the game has its own Lua scripts, so I need to stop what I'm doing with Lua script on the title screen side, so the game has an opportunity to initialize its Lua, load its scripts in, and then run all that the way it wants to. I had to end script activity when I started the load process. So what I did, I ended the script activity, but I retained the images and the sprites for the title, for the loading page. And what I said was, I will have a special system where I load up the resources that I haven't deleted in the _free section and store them all up. And because they're in this special resources section, as soon as the game starts, I then delete these sprites and images. I get rid of them once the game's finished loading. That way you can have lots of things on your loading screen in the positions they were in, and there's some really basic rules. You can have up to 63. I don't know why I chose it. I think it is 64 actually. Yeah, it's index 0 to 63 would actually equal 64. But you can have 64 sprites. The first sprite is the one that always gets stretched across from 0 width to 100% width. So that's how you get that loading bar happening. Then and it's also rendered in back to front order. So the backdrop gets rendered first, then the heading, then the back of the slider progress bar thing, then the front of the loading bar thing, and that's how it's structured. So what that means is, if you want to draw more things on the screen, don't put it at number 1. It will stretch it across the screen. It looks strange. Put it further down. But I've kept it quite flexible, and it cleans itself up, and it won't crash if you omit this. But this is the one I was trying to get to. Start game. You notice it's got no parameters. because it assumes the first level you want to load is the one you did the save standalone on. If you've ever done a save standalone, you'll do like a level 1 map, then a level 2 map, then in level 1 you'll reference level 2. You'll say this is the name of the FPM file for level 2, and then it knows how to chain them together when it does the save standalone. But it always assumes that the level you want to start in is the one you was on when you did save standalone. Now, wouldn't it be cool if you knew the names of all your levels? I know it was underscore level 1, underscore level 2. What if that underscore level secret? And that was the actual name of your FPM, you know, dot FPM. In fact, it might be an idea to actually put the dot .fpm to re-emphasise, you know, you want to skip the scripts, you're going to have to explain yourself. And then with an optional parameter, so like if it was empty, like that, it just does natural default. If you do that, maybe it can jump to a level that isn't the level you actually did the save standalone on. And then you don't, your menu could be like, you could have 3 or 4 different games all in the same executable. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah. Plus, if you was giving a game out and you wanted people to test level 5, but you didn't want them to play the 4 previous levels before testing level 5, this would allow you to have like an extra button in your beta builds, so you can jump them straight to level 5, or even have something in the game which unlocks a secret level. That when you do certain things, you then reveal that button in the script, and then you can jump straight to that. It's a good idea. Like it. How do I remember it? Ooh, write it down. Otherwise it will just leak out of my brains. Bear with me a second, you don't see any of this. This isn't happening. But I like it so much, I'm writing it down. Start game with the level you want to prefer over the default one. Brilliant. So, going back to the question, which has run off the top of my chat window. Load different maps in the menu. Not in this version, but it will be for the update. I'm going to put this one in. It's pretty cool. Well done. Nice idea, Nathan. Moving on. So please vote for sounds, and then Lee will do sounds as well. But again, you know, I can see the save game feature really being a feature of save and load. There's a lot of elements there, but sound, it's one of them things that you could use anywhere, so it could belong in anyone's feature list. You just need to see how important it is to the community. Just reading one from Malboys. Load different maps from the menu sounds like a star idea, a triple star idea, so you could make a game with lots of maps. Yeah, I agree, absolutely agree with that. So it looks like I was just thinking, this is from Nathan, I was just thinking, especially with Raver's recent demo of the car demo, it would be great if you could choose different tracks to play. Yeah, that's a better idea than my crazy beta secret level idea. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Which is why I'm going to do it. That's why I'm writing it. You can have that idea for £100. You know what? I'd be happy to pay you £100, but there's just simply no mechanism to do that. I can't pay you £100 over this broadcast. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a credit somewhere. How's that? Yeah? I'll stick your name in somewhere if you're okay with that. Because it was a bloody good idea. I'd never have put it in. I'm sorry for swearing. So yeah, 3 or 4 people who read this broadcast really like the idea of sounds, and the update hasn't gone out yet, then send me an email, say it's a really great idea. It's only a day's work. It delays everything by a day. But I think it'd be great because it'll just work everywhere. Right now you've got limitations, like you can only have 2 sounds in an entity, and then you can have other entities sort of hoarding other sounds and then triggering the sounds from the first entity. It's a real mess. Can't we just have 10 sounds? You know, that's really the request that's been going out generally. And those things will get done. It's another thing I failed to mention. The feature list isn't the only thing I'm doing. For every update, there's a big bag of tweaks that just come in on a daily basis that just are going to make life easier when they're done. Like removing a tiny pebble from your shoe. You can carry on walking, but it's just a little annoying. But just when you remove it, it's so much nicer. You know, a little change for a lot of reward. And there'll be a bag of those things in every update. And the load sound may be one of those. So it doesn't necessarily have to be related to save load. In fact, I'm talking myself into it, aren't I? Retro Game Block votes for sounds with the word sounds. I completely understand. Nathan says, it's okay. Having it in GG is enough for me. So, I don't know. have to pay anyone any £100, which is great. Looking at the clock, we've got 7 minutes left, and that will complete the hour. So if you've got any more questions, throw them in. We do have a few more minutes. I'm going to show you the rest of the scripts because I slaved over them, and I don't want you to miss the opportunity to look at the glorious things. You see in the title screen, look. This is the about. Very similar layout. I mean, everything's over theme. Now, I'm not the best Lua scripter in the world. I do enough to get functionality up and running. My forte is general programming, not specific languages. If anyone knows a way in which I can take this chunk of code, put it in an include file, and have Lua include that as a single call, you know, it just might be include at the top, but I've never done it. So someone can actually send me an email which shows me how to do that. So that goes in an include file, and it's just a single command. I've duplicated this about 8 times, and I hate cut and paste code, because if there's a bug in here, I have to fix it 8 times. I have to fix it here and then in 7 more locations, and human error creeps in, and one gets missed, and it's just more work for everyone, more pain for everyone. So there's a question for the immediate gathering, and also for anyone who watches this broadcast in video form. But the about, much the same thing. It loads in a backdrop, loads in a button so you can get back out, your cursor so you can actually click the button in the first place. It runs a simple loop, all the same stuff. Positions the button, checks what you're highlighting, changes the highlight. Whoa. Yep, nearly messed up my script there. That would have been fun. Yes, 3 undos was required to fix that one. And then when you press the back button, it goes back to title. Now, there's a bug already. I'm going to do this. Delete. You know why? Because there's another command. If we go to graphics, I added a new command called switch back page. It has a history. If you do switch page and go into another page, it knows where it came from. So instead of actually calling the original one back, which creates another nest, and it gets a bit messy, do that. It goes back to the page that called it. Keeps your nest very clean. You're back at the highest hierarchy level then. So I'm going to commit that. Although I hope I actually can get it over to my actual dev build, my dev files. And then, like I said, it slowly moves the... and yeah, I think I'll do that just to prove it actually all works. And there's deleting all the resources. And then once you're loading the game, like I said, you've seen the loading, so it loads all that in. Then the game gets played, and then you press the escape button, then it brings up the game menu, which is pretty big. It's the one with the most buttons. It goes off to the most places, all the same stuff, you know, positioning the cursor, finding the highlighter, running all these different pages based on what you click. You can resume the game, or you can leave the game from the game. So, you know, these commands can be reused in anything. You could get an enemy who doesn't take kindly to you shooting at him and ends the game for you. I mean, you have that capability if you want. I had this really great idea. I'm just going to undo all this. I'm sure I've screwed it all up. And just to show you that you can take full control of this stuff, you watch me run this game, level _level 1. I'm going to change the script in it. You see this, where it says, I want you to rotate it in a circular motion. If I increase it from 5% to 25%, I get carried away. You're going to see the outsider. And then I increase it, the rotation speed by 100. Save that. Now, there has been talk about should we encrypt scripts. Right now, Game Guru does not encrypt any scripts. Scripts are becoming a valuable commodity out there in the ecosystem. So there you go. That's what's happening, but on a sub-pixel level to create that background pixel swim. But it gives you an idea of what you can actually do with title screens now. You can have massively dynamic title screens with parallax scrolling and gorgeous inventions before you actually get into your game. And this is what Game Guru ultimately is about. Enormous amounts of flexibility, but on your terms. If you only want to spend a minute making a game, you can do that. If you want to spend a year making a game, you can do that as well, and make a game so unique no one would know it was done in Game Guru, which is also our point. There's no logo splash screen at the start of your game that you've made. You know, you want to credit us, it's your choice. There are no license conditions in that regard. You know, there may be some dogma about you making a gaming game guru that you don't want for the moment, until we have super quadruple A graphics and all that kind of stuff. But you can see there's no backdrops, so if you wanted to have that effect, you can do that. And it's for you to experiment with. Until we do that UI, which makes this layout part really easy for non-scripters, the scripters are going to have a real field day playing around with these new menu systems. I'll come out to that. I know I was a bit silly, but I just wanted to add on something a bit fun. Let's see, check if there are any more questions as I invited in. There's a few more minutes left. No question mark. Oh yeah, there is a question mark. VRG 2015 asks, will there be a title editor in the future without scripting? Yes, absolutely. It's third on the list at the moment. It's called Easy Menu Editing. I think it's called Menu Editing. That's the front end UI. That's the one we just drop in a file, drag it around, resize it, associate some logic to it. You know, this button doesn't do anything, this button launches the game, this button goes to another page, basic stuff like that. And so you don't need to script. It's definitely on the cards, but it's number 3. If you want it, make it number 1. Vote it up. Cancel all your votes and put it all in that basket, and then it'll shoot up, because if you only vote for one thing, it's maximum points awarded. So a little tip for you there if you're trying to manage the voting board. Got 1 minute left and a couple of more comments. Retro Game Bloke comes in to the rescue. The include question. It's as simple as an include command, I believe, but not 100% sure. If you can send me an email on that, that'd be awesome, because it's going to save my, you know, I'm guilt tripping every time I cut and paste that massive section of code into each script. It's just not very clever. You guys should add tree editor to the vote system. Tree editor, editing trees. Sure, yeah. There's a section right at the bottom. If you go to the website, stick it in there, write it in, and it's all being recorded. And then we consolidate them all, and we add things to the voting board from time to time. So you can pop it in there. Could we play WMV in the titles? Not at the moment, but yeah, send me an email. I may write it to a list if I get other people asking me for that as well. Otherwise, it'll probably come in as one of those nice to haves that get added in incidentally. Another question: will there ever be a make cool game button? You know what? I think there will. I think Game Guru, some people will be saying 60 seconds is far too much time. I'm a busy person. I can't afford 60 seconds to make a game. I've got other things I can do. So yeah, some sort of wizard with a magic game button. You press it. It creates a game out of all the assets that are available completely randomly. I did that before in a product called the 3D Game Maker, and it was wild. So I know it works. It's fun. But there's not been many requests for it, so sorry about that. Oh, and the questions fly. Why do you have to leave all the questions until less than 30 seconds on the broadcast to go? But I'll answer them anyway, because I'm a nice guy. Advanced melee fighting? Question mark. Oh dear. Yeah, that's on the voting board. We're actually doing little bits of it now with the fantasy pack. DLC, we've got new characters coming, and they need some melee action. They've got swords, and they've got bows, and, well, not bows, you've got a big axe thing, and they need to do it up close and personal, so there's going to be a little bit of that in. Maybe that's that, maybe I tick that off, we'll see. Another 4 question marks from Ravy, who isn't allowed to ask questions, because he actually works for us, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Lead is called require script, require instead of #include. Right, someone send me the ultimate email on this subject so I can get it done. I knew it was possible, but I have to kind of stick to what I know to get things done as quickly as possible. Malboy says Unity has a tree editor and it works pretty good. Yeah, I think it's the speed tree module that they acquired and added in as middleware. It is pretty neat. But you want to look at the license terms for speed tree. I mean, I think you can use that. Just grab speed tree and create some trees. But it all gets very muddy with the middleware agreements that you have to make. But certainly, we'll add it to the list if you add it to that thing at the end. What's on my screen right now. And then we'll see what we can do with it. Retro Game Block confirms it's possible because he used it for his pick up and drop script. Great, wonderful. I'm happy already. Nathan L38 says I picked up the 3D Game Maker from PC World a few years ago for £1. It was incredible. Best £1 you ever spent, probably. Yeah. If you want to see where we came from, historical past, look for the 3D Game Maker. It could do 6 genres. You can make a game with one button click. It was that powerful. Just shows we have a bit of pedigree when it comes to these kind of products. So don't discount us too soon. So looks like we've got some users of 3D Game Maker on the chat right now. And Synchromesh is still using the 3D Game Maker. I can't believe it still works. And on Windows 10. My God, I was future-proof that back then, wasn't I? VIG says his dinner is waiting, and I think that's my sentiment as well. We're 2 minutes over, but I think it was important to answer all the questions. I will be back next week, maybe Thursday, maybe Wednesday. It probably will be Wednesday. But keep checking the blogs, keep checking the news feeds, you'll find out which day it is. Might be the start of the formal Twitches, scary moment, or it might be more casual stuff like this. And if you have a preference, just post it on the forums, there's a special board for that. So until next week, I hope this was informative and enjoyable. I'm looking forward to getting this update out so you can play around with the new scripting commands and the ability to save and load your progress in standalone executables. But until next week, I'm going to say goodbye and play that music.